listening to Dean's List News, giving the mainstream media a failing grade.
Is it global warming or climate change? And why are we paying taxes on carbon all of a sudden? Are the ice caps really melting? Is the Earth flooding? Is it getting warmer all the time? Or is something else going on here?
It's hard to capture the astonishment that the experts in the science of ice felt when they saw this minimum in 2005, which meant that the amount of ice that had melted, it's been roughly the size of the continental United States, minus an area roughly the size of Arizona. Nothing against Arizona.
And I wonder how much ice has melted since the end of the last ice age, if you were to take it by those measurements, Al.
But the amount that melted in 2005 was equivalent to an area covering everything east of the Mississippi River in the United States. Then, when the real shock to the scientists came was in 2007, when this happened. Their phrase was, it fell off a cliff. And then the extra amount that melted was this much. Now, this covers the area of ice. It does not cover the volume of the ice.
Well, why would you leave that out? It seems like an important measurement in ice loss.
And Bob Carell referred to this. The U.S. Naval Postgraduate School has a team that integrates the U.S. Navy's nuclear submarines that go under the ice cap and satellite measurements that are calibrated to work with it. And based on that, they said actually 2008 had a smaller minimum, probably.
And I can grow wings and fly around. Probably.
Than 2007. And these are figures that are fresh. I don't know if they've been, I don't know when they were released, but I just got them yesterday from Dr. Václav Maslowski at the Naval Postgraduate School. And this is the volumetric record of the ice. And some of the models suggest to Dr. Maslowski that there is a 75% chance that the entire North Polar ice cap during some of the summer months could be completely ice-free within the next 5 to 7 years.
Some reports suggest to one guy that there's a 75% chance that in some summers we will have no ice. How can you be so indefinite?
Bob used a figure of 2030.
That's important, as I will show later.
And the volumetric analysis leads this Dr. Maslowski to make that projection. We will find out.
That was in 2009. Here's a report from this year showing how by the year 2030, the Earth is actually apparently headed for what's called a mini ice age. Even NASA's own research is showing that the Antarctic sea ice is growing and it's reaching record levels and record volume levels. We're talking volume. That's the measurement that Al Gore didn't feel like it was necessary to include in his studies. This means there hasn't been this much ice there in all of recorded history. So first it was global warming, now it's climate change. What exactly are we trying to fight against here? This is because people who take into account man-made climate change don't, for some reason, take into account the sun and its effect on our climate. I often compare these people of today to the people of the past who would say that the Earth was the center of the universe, or that it was flat without definite proof. Here's the data from ice core samples taken in Greenland that show the difference in temperature over the last, 10,000 years. And if you take a closer look at this picture, you can see that this little green dot right here is barely even a line on the timeline. That's the extent of our records for global warming. And the International Panel on Climate Change reports they've been caught doctoring their own data. They got rid of what was called the medieval warm period, where temperatures were much warmer then than they are now. Which kind of brings us back to my original question. Is it global warming or is it climate change? Global warming is one thing, imagining that we're actually going to melt all the ice off the planet and flood ourselves. But climate change just seems like a naturally occurring phenomena. This is a map of the glaciers that covered North America during the last ice age. I don't think anybody was driving cars and producing that much carbon to melt these. I'm about to play a clip that demonstrates how green is the new red of the communists. It has become the trendy color to identify with. Oh, save the planet. You have to do it or else the planet will die. Pay us your money because you put out carbon. Just listen to how little is actually said here.
We were all united in our commitment to stepping up in the fight against climate change.
I don't know exactly how you plan to fight against a naturally occurring phenomena, but okay.
To ensuring that we have a Canadian approach to climate change that recognizes the leadership that different provinces have taken and the different methods that they've taken to address emissions reduction within their own geographies and their own economies. It is clear that the way forward for Canada will be in a solution that resembles Canada. That is shared values and shared desire for outcomes and different approaches to achieve those outcomes right across this great country. And I'm excited about the opportunity to collaborate with my fellow First Ministers on this issue because, yes, climate change represents a challenge to the world.
That's because you're trying to stop the planet from doing something it naturally does.
But I know it also presents a real opportunity to innovate, to create new solutions, clean technology, and create forward-thinking economies and cleaner, greener jobs that every jurisdiction across this country needs.
Canada's emissions really aren't that bad when you look at countries like China, and you guys aren't really complaining about them.
As we are meeting on issues related to climate change and so therefore inextricably linked to Canada's energy sector.
That was the plan. As Vladimir Putin has recently pointed out publicly, that the whole climate change scheme is really just a way to put energy caps on developing nations and to have the control for yourselves.
As we are meeting, there are literally tens of thousands of Canadians who have been laid off of their jobs in this sector.
Like I said, that was the plan.
And there is the prospect for more difficult news if prices stay low. And so as we prepare for Paris and to present a constructive and national front.
This is unrelated, but I wonder if he knows what the national front is, especially talking about Paris.
To the world, we need to be mindful of that fact. We need to work hard to ensure that we're doing no further harm to an industry that's facing great difficulty. I don't think those things are necessarily mutually exclusive, especially if we're mindful of them. The 90 days post-Paris are important with respect to targets and how they're implemented across the country. I've also noted publicly that the Prime Minister campaigned on a plan to allow provinces to meet targets in the way that suited their jurisdictions.
This is newspeak for carbon tax.
I support it then, I support it now.
You support a tax? No way.
And the work will be very important post-Paris so that we can work hard to ensure that we have a world-leading energy sector and one that's under some stress right now, but we need to do what we can to do no harm and to ensure its future going forward.
Just like Vladimir Putin said, global warming is meant to cap and control energy production in developing countries. So pretty much anybody who's not America. It has very little to do with people driving cars to and from work every day. I mean, Airplanes have lots of exhaust that come out of them, but even still, the amount of carbon in the atmosphere is nothing in comparison to water vapor. And water vapor is just a way more powerful greenhouse gas element. It traps much more heat than carbon, but we don't have a tax on water. That would be too obvious now, wouldn't it?
You're listening to Dean's List News, giving the mainstream media a failing grade.